What do we love more than true crime? Worrying about why we love it.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 dark truths about true crime media.
Could you please join us outside in the alleyway so we may begin this tour?
For this list, we'll be looking at the disturbing and upsetting realities of this popular genre. What dark truth shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. Number 10. Dark tourism. It's not unusual for people to visit historical sites to learn more about notable past events. One example is Salem, Massachusetts, where many visit to see the location of the witch trials.
I am charged to bring you to the house of Lieutenant Nathaniel Ingersoll for your examination.
On what charge?
Witchcraft, good wife.
The 1692 witch trials, when innocent men and women accused of witchcraft were put to death. The trials are reenacted here daily in tribute.
Some tours, however, take visitors to former homes of criminals and actual murder sites. These attractions are regularly met with backlash and disgust from the families of victims and others affected by the tragedies.
Prentice, who lived through the trauma of those days, questions the ethical and moral reasons for keeping such a dark stain on Milwaukee's history alive.
It was horrific and depressing. Who the hell wants to think about that stuff?
In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for instance, visitors can go on tours to see places associated with serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, from the bars where he found his victims to the location where his apartment once stood. Meanwhile, locals are reminded of a painful time close to home.
It's just kind of traumatizing to see how people would praise a serial killer.
Number 9. Misinformation and inaccuracies. True crime documentaries don't always get the facts straight, whether it's due to dramatization, time constraints, or a lack of fact-checking.
Learned we shouldn't expect a historically accurate portrayal of the awful story that unfolded here years ago in Utah County.
Creators of these programs often take creative license, adding or removing details to make the material more entertaining. Hulu's Under the Banner of Heaven, for example, took some liberties in the 1984 murders of Brenda and Erica Lafferty, sparking backlash from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS.
I didn't recognize anything about myself, my family, or my culture depicted in the miniseries.
Seems like it's almost all fiction.
The show's historical inaccuracies of Mormonism frame the religion in a negative light. Additionally, the way real people are portrayed is cause for concern.
If you don't interview people who were actually there and took charge of the case, I don't know how real it could be.
Brenda's sister criticized the fictionalized version of Brenda, who came off as almost extremist in her LDS views. Number 8. Negative effect on viewers' mental health. Public fascination with true crime is nothing new, but with the increasing popularity of podcasts, social media, and streaming, the genre has become a cultural phenomenon.
True crime allows us to kind of play out various scenarios in our head, the what ifs, and allows us to then, based on the sort of scenario that we're imagining or we're hearing about, to come up with alternative strategies.
There are a number of reasons why people consume true crime media, from insight about danger to learning survival skills or just curiosity about the human mind. But consuming these stories in large amounts, especially binge watching, can impact one's psychological health and overall well-being.
I think that true crime gives people a sense that, bad things do happen. We all know that. But that when a bad thing happens, that people have ways of surviving. People have ways of getting through.
Mental health professionals say that it can leave viewers feeling unsafe in their everyday life, leading to anxiety, depression, and paranoia. Putting the body through a certain level of stress can have physical side effects as well, including issues with cardiovascular health. So, remember to balance your intake of true crime stories with lighter media, friends.
But what if our troubling connection isn't to murder itself, but the telling of it, the story?
Number 7. Amateur sleuths can negatively impact investigations. True crime fans sometimes believe their familiarity with the genre means they have the knowledge and investigative skills to solve real crimes.
We're like private investigators, except for no one hired us or asked for our help. We work together online to solve cold cases, disappearances, murders. It's super fun.
And while there are some examples of citizen involvement benefiting an investigation, armchair detectives usually do more harm than good. These people share their theories on social media and even sometimes go as far as making false accusations against innocent individuals, which can do a lot to hinder an investigation, including damaging reputations and acting as a distraction.
We are the official source of information, and anything that comes from other sources is either rumor or speculation.
In 2023, a TikToker who claims to have psychic abilities told her followers that University of Idaho professor Rebecca Schofield was involved in the local murders of 4 students. Schofield filed a lawsuit, but since the perpetuation of the baseless rumors, she's been harassed online and in person.
A University of Idaho professor is suing a so-called internet sleuth for defamation after the TikTok personality posted a series of videos accusing, without any credible evidence, that the professor was somehow tied to the November murders.
Number 6. Subjectivity of true crime content creators. Unlike dramatizations, documentaries are expected to present an objective point of view. But sometimes, content is framed by personal bias of the creators, or only tells a single side of a story. Filmmakers Laura Ricciardi and Moira Demos were accused of doing both in 2015's Making a Murderer.
We wanted to ask bigger questions about the system.
Is it guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? And is the process fair? Can we trust the verdict?
The well-known Netflix docuseries centered on Stephen Avery's past wrongful conviction and eventual exoneration. He and his nephew would later be associated with the murder of Teresa Halbach, a case the documentary also followed.
This is not a documentary at all. It's still a defense advocacy piece. Of what they pick and choose causes only one reaction and only one conclusion, that Mr. Avery was innocent.
However, journalists, legal experts, Halbach's family, and viewers called out the series for purposely omitting facts, ultimately presenting Avery's one-sided version of events. Ricciardi and Demos denied any bias in their work, pointing to the limited runtime as the reason for excluding information.
All of the criticism I heard were from people that really had missed the whole point of season 1. So, the best way to handle that was to just do the same thing and hope that now with 20 episodes, it's clearer what our motivations are.
Number 5. Glorifying and romanticizing killers. In recent years, the true crime genre has been criticized for focusing too much on the criminals instead of their victims. This is especially true when it comes to serial killers.
Like some people like country music and some people like hip hop. I'm interested in crime. I visit with, people who kill people.
For decades, people have idolized killers like John Wayne Gacy and Charles Manson through murderabilia, putting their faces on t-shirts and mugs and even buying their artwork.
These are items that are personally produced by some of the nation's most cold-blooded diabolical killers, and then they are shipped out for sale. Artwork, autographs, letters.
Although it can be unintentional, creators can sometimes present their serial killing central figure in a way that can attract rather than disgust viewers. The oft controversial Ryan Murphy featured a fictionalized take on young Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, in American Horror Story 1984. A handsome actor was casted to play the notorious killer, consequently making the character desirable to some.
You're Richard Ramirez. Your picture's all over the news. Cops looking for you. Holy sh**. The Night Stalker?
Number 4. Trauma as entertainment. The main motivator for some true crime creators is bringing awareness to cases of injustice and unsolved crimes and giving victims a platform to tell their stories. However, it's important to note that many true crime programs are, at their core, about entertainment.
We had algorithms that were feeding people, and it was all based upon engagement. It's what is the most outrageous. It is what is going to get people up in arms. Because it doesn't really feel real.
In the age of social media, real-life tragedies and victims are easily exploited. YouTubers and TikTokers will retell these gruesome stories while doing makeup tutorial videos, whether intentional or not, have the effect of making light of these stories and treating them without the sensitivity they necessitate.
At every juncture, at every instance, true crime manages to transform itself into entertainment at the expense of people's actual real-life trauma and pain.
In the case of the short-lived podcast, Popcorn Murder Stories, after some particularly poor reporting, where the hosts joke about a crime, passed a great deal of unwarranted judgment, and got facts wrong, the podcast found its end.
And I just have an issue with anybody who is that upfront about the fact that they find entertainment and fun in other people's horrific lifelong trauma.
Number 3, prioritizing ratings over ethics. For many in the true crime media business, it's all about ratings and views. So, when presented with an opportunity to increase popularity, they'll take it.
It is specifically designed to provoke an emotional response because the audience is titillated by the naughtiness of everyone's grappling with this topic.
With real stories, audiences usually already know how it will end. That's why, in order to create suspense, a plethora of different filmmaking elements and storytelling tactics will be used.
It uses journalism as a way to tell stories, so that even though rigorous journalism is important and stories are fact-checked, the story comes first.
Unfortunately, some creators lose sight of ethics. The integrity of the documentarians behind HBO's 2015 docuseries, The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, were called into question after it was revealed they held on to an alleged confession until the docuseries finale.
What the hell did I do? Kill them all, of course.
The moment certainly made for an explosive final episode, but the filmmakers received backlash for appearing to value entertainment more than doing the right thing. Number 2, creators don't need consent to tell someone's story. One of the most glaring problems with true crime media is the fact that creatives aren't legally required to ask or even inform someone about their being the subject of a project.
The filmmakers made my documentary while I was still on trial. And I was afraid that I was never going to have the chance to tell my side of it and explain my innocence to people.
Since most criminal cases are public record, permission isn't needed to acquire any rights to a story. What usually follows is a victim or a victim's family stumbling upon a documentary or podcast broadcasting the grisly details of the tragedy they experienced and having to relive their trauma.
Once you become a media creation, I don't really know how you undo that.
Jordan Preston spoke out against Hulu's Dead Asleep, a docuseries questioning the guilt of the person who murdered her sister. Netflix's Dahmer also stirred up endless controversy in 2022 for a variety of reasons, including that the victims' families were purportedly not made aware of the series.
Does it bring back all of these horrible memories?
Yes, it does. I have been through hell because of this one person.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, the victims are forgotten. As we've discussed, the victims at the center of true crime content are rarely the focus. Many will dig into the psychology of the killers and their shocking behavior.
All the while, even as he had this surface, staid life, he was killing women with tremendous impunity.
For most content creators of true crime, the possible success of a new film, series, podcast, or book takes precedence over respecting the wishes of victims and their loved ones.
She should definitely be remembered more than her death story. I think people forget that there's so many victims impacted by this story.
Mariah Day cooperated with NBC for The Thing About Pam, which told the story of her mother, Betsy Faria's murder. When she watched the series, however, she saw that dark humor was used to up the entertainment value.
For people to watch it and get satisfaction, it's just kind of strange.
Faria was lost in all the comedy, and the show became more about the titular convicted murderer than the life that was lost.